everyone. I'm Katie Foster. I'm Student Ministry Director here. This is week 6 of Start the Party. Honestly, this is probably one of the longest series we've ever had. Well, this is the longest series I've ever had being here, and I'm just having trouble keeping track of weeks. This series is just going by so fast. I can't believe it's already week 6. We are halfway through the series, and then remember, there's 10 weeks of messages, and then week 11, just July 23rd, is the party. And I want you to come dressed for a party, but also to have some fun, be able to play games. We like to celebrate the fact that we're all different. God made us all differently. So you dress for a party, whatever that means for you. So if you like the Super Bowl, then wear a jersey. Or if you like a pajama party, wear a pajama party. Or if you like to dress up, you can dress up. Just come dressed for fun. Or you can just wear normal clothes. I mean, that's fine too. But just make sure it's appropriate and be sure that you're capable to join in for some of the fun games that we're going to do. But though we like to celebrate for real in all different ways, this isn't what we are talking about right now. We're not talking about party planning, as I said before. A party is any effort here to celebrate, serve, or enjoy being with others in a way that adds value to life. And a party starter means being someone who makes space for that to happen however they can. So this week, we're talking about one specific way we can all choose to be party starters. But before we do, I'm going to ask you guys a question. Have you ever needed a rescue? I mean, I feel like we all should have at some point in our life, whether it's big or small. We've all found ourselves in a situation where we needed somebody to step in and help out. So like Derek, Pastor Derek from several weeks ago, my story of being rescued involves a car. But unlike Derek, luckily for me, there were cell phones at the time, thank goodness, because we were in the middle of nowhere. So junior year of college, so second week of spring semester, we had a break. So like you had one full week of school, then you had a 3-day weekend. I was going to go home. I was going to come home from Rochester. I looked forward to it, even though I was just home, but there's not a lot of breaks, so I was excited to go home. But it's wintertime in Rochester. So of course the snowstorm hit. I think it was pretty much the only snowstorm of that year. I don't think there was a lot of snowstorms that year. So I had to cancel my plans. And I was really disappointed. So one of my friends convinced me, and we made a bad decision, convinced me that it'll be adventure and she'll go home with me for that weekend. But I wanted to surprise my parents because I just canceled my plans. So I was no dummy. I knew I needed to tell somebody I was on the road, so I called my brother and said, I'm going to meet you at the restaurant, okay? And just be in contact with my friend and just, stall if you need to. So we go out, and I'm not saying go out and drive in a snowstorm. This is not the moral of the story. This was a bad decision, okay? So we go out into the snowstorm, and for an hour and a half, we drive through the snow. So for an hour and a half, or over a 2.5-hour drive, we're driving through the snow, and we keep hearing this noise coming from the car. And we thought it was the snow because it was like the roads were covered. It was super windy. I mean, I thought there's snow built up on the tires. No lights on the dash, nothing to indicate that there's something wrong with the car besides a noise. So then we finally get out of the snowstorm after an hour and a half, and when we thought the noise should stop after a little bit, it continued. So we're now car experts, so we didn't pull over to the side of the road because what were we going to do? Look at the car and be like, yep, something's wrong, it's making a noise. No, we had no idea what to look at. And we didn't feel like we could call for help from somebody in Rochester because, one, we didn't want them going through the storm, and two, we felt like we were too far away. We're only an hour away from home, so let's try to keep going. And of course, I made the bad decision to not ask for help then. I still wanted to surprise my parents for coming home. Still should have called, but I didn't. So we continue on, and we're about 30 minutes away from home, and the noise suddenly stops. And as the noise stopped, I look out my windshield, and there I see my left front wheel continue on the road without me in my car. And it felt like 10 seconds, but really was probably pretty instantaneous. The car suddenly went boom. And I don't know how I was ever this calm. I don't think I've ever been this calm in my entire life. But I calmly pulled over to the side of the road and we were safe. But we had to leave. I mean, we had to ask for help. So luckily, as I said, we had cell phones. My friend called for a tow truck, and I had to break a news to my dad that I was just in an accident and the car needed help. So this is how the conversation went. Hey, Dad, how's it going? Great, Katie. You know, I just really looked forward to you coming home this weekend, so I'm just kind of bummed out. I was like, I know, but I got a surprise for you. I'm coming home. And he's like, really? Where are you? I'm like, well, we just passed the stair exit. We're almost home. We're almost there. But my one wheel may have made it to a WeGo by now. And that's how I broke the news to my dad. Needless to say, my dad showed up with the rest of my family and rescued us, and so did the tow truck. But we should have asked for help so much sooner than that. And if we did ask, even if it was inconvenient for people would have shown up. And we all need a little help from time to time. Everybody does. I mean, that's just how life goes. I mean, when you take a look at your school or the community or the world, we can see it. People are facing some heavy realities each and every day. And that's just way more than just car issues. But even though, I mean, that's incredibly sad, there's something else that's true about all of you that I do love. You guys care. Probably more than any generation before you, you're aware of the needs in the world around you. You understand that people need to talk, people need to be heard and feel seen, and people need to know they are valued. You see the wrong in the world, you read about it, you speak up, you post about it, and you support the cause in your own way. That's the way to be party starters. But sometimes all that need in the world can be overwhelming. Does anyone ever feel overwhelmed by it? I mean, with so much access to what's happening, not just in your world, but in the whole world, it's easy to feel worn out by the pain around us. I mean, maybe you see it, but you're not sure what you can do to help. Or maybe you've made an effort to do something, but you got discouraged when you didn't see the result you wanted or no results at all. Maybe you chose to move on and hope that someone else would step up or help. Or maybe you feel so many feelings about so many wrongs in the world that you just have to look away so you don't get completely overwhelmed or anxious. I mean, this can be super challenging. Honestly, I felt all of these at different times, and I've done all of these at different times. As party starters, we're called not just to live the full life that Jesus has promised, but also to help others do the same. The thing is with so many hurts happening in the world, can we really make a difference big enough to make a change? I mean, have you ever asked yourself or said to yourself, I'm just one person, what can I do? So during his life on earth, Jesus often taught people what it looks like to practically be a party starter. But honestly, he didn't call it that. He called it being a disciple, a following Jesus. And he really wants people to experience a full life. So today we're going to dive deep into another parable, another story that will help us figure out how to step in and offer help when we see a need. But we got to set the scene. So Jesus was asked a question, and it was an amazing question, by a religious leader at the time. And what was it going to take to follow him and live the full life that God promised? I mean, that's a great question. Don't we all want to know that? But Jesus saw the man's heart. This religious leader wasn't asking because he wanted to actually know. He was asking because he wanted to trap Jesus. See, religious leaders knew all the religious rules and regulations inside and out. And because of that, they had an idea of what Jesus would say. But Jesus is like the king of plot twists. So Jesus answered the question with another question. And then he told a story. So Jesus replied, "What does the law of Moses say? How do you read it?" The man answered, "You must love the Lord, your God, with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, and all your mind. And, love your neighbor as yourself." I mean, it seems pretty simple, right? Love God, check. Love yourself, check. Love your neighbor. Who really is my neighbor anyway? I mean, that's what this guy was thinking, and many of us sometimes think that too. Who is my neighbor? So Jesus answers the religious leader by telling a story. A Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and he was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, and left him half dead beside the road. I mean, just a guy walking down a frequently traveled road when he was attacked, robbed, and left for dead. And Jesus goes on to say, a Jewish priest, so a religious leader, saw this wounded traveler and walked on by. A Levite, a man who was also a spiritual leader in ancient Jewish society, came by this guy next, saw him, and kept walking. I mean, can you imagine how this guy felt? 2 religious leaders ignored him. These guys are supposed to be helping him. They're supposed to represent God to the people. So at that point, if they're not going to help me, maybe help isn't coming. But something incredible happens. Then a despised Samaritan came along. And when he saw the man, he felt compassion for him. So let's break this down character to character. Religious leaders, they're actually known for using their power to abuse, ignore, or let other people down. They were supposed to show the world who God was, but instead they were showing this guy that they were better than everyone else, that they didn't need to help. And the Samaritan, he uses his power to take care of the person who no one expects him to take care of. Because this was a huge deal. In their society back then, Samaritans were considered to be the lowest of people by others. They were disliked, overlooked, and left out by a lot of groups at the time, including the religious leaders that Jesus was telling the story to. But instead of letting them see the Samaritan as the villain, Jesus made the Samaritan the hero. So the Samaritan didn't see the wounded Jewish man and walk on by. He didn't choose to do nothing because of the differences between their 2 groups. He felt compassion for that man, and that compassion motivated him to act. Because Jesus says that the Samaritan in this story took care of the Jewish man's wounds. He transported him to an inn where he could rest, and then he paid for every single thing he needed while he was there. I mean, Jesus had him do it all. Not because he had to. Not because he wanted to hold it over the Jewish man's head. Not to make himself look better. And not because it would stop this from ever happening again. I mean, the bandits were still out there. But the Samaritan man helped because he was loving his neighbor as himself. The Samaritan used what he had to help somebody in his life, even though he's never met this guy before. So when the religious leader actually asked Jesus who his neighbor was, he was asking Jesus, who am I actually obligated to help? I mean, what's the bare minimum? Is it just the people I'm close to? Like the people who are the same as me? The people who I think deserve it? And Jesus gave a clear answer with a story. Everyone is your neighbor. So when we love Jesus and follow him, we have the responsibility to start the party simply by loving everyone in this world as our neighbor. And that's whoever God puts in our path, just like the Samaritan. And the Samaritan wasn't just a good neighbor, he was a party starter. Because a party starter uses what they have for the good of others. Does that mean that you have to help every single person in the world? That you respond to every single hurt, to support every cause, show up every single time there's a need. No, honestly. I mean, it's impossible. That's why we get overwhelmed, because we feel like we have to do all the things on our own, by ourselves. It's not possible to do it all. But as a party starter, you can choose to do what you can, when you can, to help your neighbor in need. I'm going to be honest with you guys, because I love being honest with you. This is going to be inconvenient for you. I mean, it is. It's going to be a reality. God might call you to do something to upset your rhythm and get you out of your comfort zone. I mean, think of the Samaritan. I'm sure it wasn't easy for him. It would have been easier for him to walk on by. And nobody in their society would have blamed him. But Samaritan still felt compassion for the man, and he motivated to act. He had to clean his wounds. He transported him. I mean, he paid for all his medical bills and taking care of him at this inn. And he didn't stop the issue from happening again, but he addressed the need that God put in his path. I mean, it wasn't convenient for him. I think we all think about money. To spend his money, I'm sure he had other thoughts to do with it. But it's all about choosing to see the need and be moved by compassion to meet it. It's about letting God's Spirit lead you to love your neighbor as yourself. Because a party starter uses what they have for the good of others. And we've talked about this a little bit last week, but you have what it takes to start the party right now. You have what it takes to be God to other people, because you have God. So with God, you have all you need to love your neighbor. So you're going to start by asking yourself, who is my neighbor? I mean, who do you see on a regular basis? At home, your neighborhood, school, social media? This could be anything from your siblings to your parents to some person you've never met or talked to. It's who God puts in your path. And then the next thing is, what do they need? Where are they hurting, struggling, or just in need of a little help? I mean, maybe it's just a kind word or $1 for a bottle of water or help carrying a bunch of stuff. And then what do I have? What resources, influence, relationships, talents do you have that you can leverage for the good of others? And sometimes we try to downplay, that's not a real gift. How can I really use that to help others? But you can. Because then the last question is, how can I use what I have? I mean, if you don't know, ask a friend, ask a parent, or even a small group leader what you have. I mean, seriously, just ask someone, what do you think I have that I can help someone with? I mean, God gave us all different gifts and talents for this reason. And I want you to keep that in mind, too, as we will begin to have church-wide and merged community outreach events coming up. And I don't want to wait until the end to pray today, because this is so important. Helping others in this world, being God to others is so important. It's how we share the light of Jesus with others. So I want to pray right now, and I want you to pray this prayer with me. God, please open my eyes to the needs around me and show me what I can do to help. And then help me to love my neighbor as myself. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Remember, this was Jesus' answer to what is the greatest command. So it is a big deal. And some of you may find this overwhelming. Some of you may be even thinking, be a neighbor? I can't. I'm struggling right now. I need someone to help me. And that's okay. We all need help. We all need rescuing from time to time. Don't wait like me in my car thing when it's too late to ask for help. Don't wait too long. In small group, you're surrounded by people who want to be a neighbor to you. I mean, there are leaders in your small group and merge and in this church who are willing to help you through whatever you're going through right now. So just please consider opening up about it. And I know this is super hard. A lot of us are afraid of judgment or afraid of feeling maybe just weird or uncomfortable, afraid of what might happen if you open up. But the thing is it will help. I mean, people care about you here. We just need to ask for help first. But remember, a party starter uses what they have for the good of others. And like we said, the needs around us can be overwhelming. And we aren't made to meet all the needs we see on our own. But the things we can do, no matter how small, can have a huge impact. How many people like balloons for a party? I mean, honestly, is it really a party without balloons? Exactly, it's not. So when you guys see balloons, I want you to see it as a reminder, because it just takes a little bit of air in here to create a big impact. This is going to sound really weird. I apologize, guys. I can't do it without laughing. I don't like to make it too big, because then I can't tie it. But it just takes a little bit of air to make a huge impact. And to brighten someone's day. And it doesn't take much. Sometimes we don't even think much of it. But we get to be party starters for everyone. Now, I really want you to think about this, because it's easy to be a party starter, to start the party with someone you like. But what about people we'd rather ignore? Is that hard to start the party with them? What about people who are unlike us, completely different? Almost hit you. What about people who don't like us? Still called to start the party for them. Thanks. And then even people we dislike, that we have a hard time liking, we're still called to start the party for them. I'm going to hit you one of these times. That's it, though. So all those people, we are called to show God's love to. It's so easy to do it with people we actually like or get along with. But this is one of the hardest things a Christian has in them. I mean, but when you head to small group today, I want you to think about this question. What is one need I see around me right now?
Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. If you really liked it, hit subscribe below. And if you want to check out some other videos that we have on our channel, click right over here. And if this video up here is one that's specifically picked out for you. Thank you again for watching.